The Lighthouse Keeper Who Collects Stars. Chapter 1, The First Star. I have lived by the sea for as long as I can remember. My home is the lighthouse that stands alone on a quiet cliff, its stone walls brushed by the salty winds and the gentle sigh of the waves below. Every evening, as the horizon swallows the sun, I climb the spiral staircase to the very top, lantern in hand, to light the lamp that guides no ships. There are no ships here anymore, only the endless stretch of water, the hush of tides, and the sky that blooms with more stars than I can ever count. Tonight, I find myself sitting on the narrow balcony wrapped around the lantern room, my legs dangling over the railing. The metal is cool beneath me, and the vast sky above feels close enough to touch. The ocean is a mirror tonight, holding the reflection of each tiny spark overhead. When I was a child, I would lie on my back outside, on the soft grass behind the lighthouse, and watch the stars blink awake one by one. I imagined they were seeds drifting down to earth, waiting for someone to catch them. Back then, I had no ladder high enough, no jar wide enough. So I simply wished on them, again and again. I didn't know then that wishes have weight. That they settle into your bones and anchor you to the ground, even as your heart drifts higher. It was on such a night, years ago, when the wind felt softer and my hair was darker, that I caught my first star. I was at the top of the tower, leaning over the railing just like now, humming a tune that had no words. Something brushed against my fingertips, like silk soaked in moonlight. When I opened my hand, there it was, a tiny light, no bigger than a marble, pulsing gently in my palm. I didn't know what to do with it. So I spoke to it, in the same soft voice I use for the sea birds perched on my windowsill. "Hello," I whispered. The star flickered, as if nodding. It was warm, but not in any way that could burn me. Instead, it seemed to breathe, a steady heartbeat of silver glow. I took it inside, careful not to crush it in my excitement. Down the winding stairs, through the old wooden door, into my little room filled with books, blankets, and the smell of salt. I placed the star in an empty glass bottle and sealed it with a cork. It shone softly through the night, keeping me company when the wind howled and the sea raged against the cliffs. I told myself it was a one-time gift, a trick of the wind and the tide. But the next night, when I climbed the stairs again, another brushed my hand. And another the night after that. Years have passed since then. My shelves are lined with jars and bottles, each holding a soft, breathing glow. They light my home better than any lamp. I do not know if the stars mind being kept here with me. They seem calm, resting inside their glass walls like dreams waiting to be remembered. Sometimes I wonder if they chose me, or if I simply chose to notice them when no one else would. Maybe they were always falling, brushing past rooftops and tree branches, slipping through the cracks of a world too busy to look up. Here, there is nothing but sky and sea, room enough for a lonely lighthouse keeper to notice tiny miracles. Tonight, as the wind sighs and the waves hush themselves against the rocks below, I hold out my hand once more. I do not wish for anything grand, no riches, no fame, no company but the quiet light. Just one more star to place beside the others. Another companion to keep the dark at bay. Above, the sky listens. And in the space between one breath and the next, I feel it, a brush of light, a warm touch. My fingers close gently, and the world seems to hold its breath. When I open my palm, the new star rests there, waiting to be named. Chapter 2, The Whispering Jar. Each new star has its own voice. I learned this not long after I caught the first. It's not a voice like yours or mine, it's softer, almost like the memory of a voice you heard in a dream but couldn't quite hold on to when morning came. When the wind rattles the lighthouse windows and the tide pulls at the cliffside, I sometimes sit among my bottles and listen. If I am very still, I can almost make out their words. Tonight, I sit cross-legged on the old wooden floorboards of my little room, surrounded by the soft glow of countless tiny suns. I have placed the newest star into a small, round jar, a jar that once held my grandmother's homemade jam. Now it holds light instead of sweetness, though to me, they taste the same. I lean in close, pressing my ear to the cool glass. The star hums, a quiet, silvery hum that settles into my bones. Sometimes, I think it tries to tell me stories about the places it has been, the spaces between the spaces, the folds of the sky where time drifts slower than anywhere else. When I was younger, I would have asked the star for secrets, what lies beyond the horizon, whether tomorrow's weather would be kind, whether my hair would ever turn as white as the sea foam. Now, I simply listen. The older I grow, the more I realize that answers matter less than the comfort of a question asked gently, without expectation. Outside, the waves are steady, the same waves that have eaten away at this cliff for centuries. They don't rush anymore, they simply exist, lapping at stone like a soft breath. I imagine they too whisper secrets, but I do not know their language yet. One day, perhaps, when I have collected enough stars, they will teach me. I lift the jar and hold it close to my chest. Its warmth seeps through the thin fabric of my shirt, blooming against my heart. I close my eyes and imagine the star's tiny voice threading into my dreams, weaving its gentle hum into the quiet corridors of my mind. The lighthouse around me is alive with this soft chorus. Each jar, each bottle, each small container of light adds its voice to the hush of the night. It is not lonely here, not truly. I think, perhaps, loneliness is not the absence of people, but the absence of light to guide you through the dark. Once, a fisherman found his way to my door. He was old and salt-cracked, his skin the color of driftwood. He came to ask if the lighthouse lamp could be lit again for ships that no longer came. He looked around at my shelves full of bottled stars and asked if they were worth more than the beam that once cut through the storm. I told him that no ships passed here anymore, and that the stars were enough for me. He stayed for tea, warming his hands by the small iron stove as the bottles glowed softly behind us. When he left, he did not look back. I wonder sometimes if he believed my stars were real, or just tricks of my lonely mind. It doesn't matter. The stars and I know the truth we share, and it is enough. Tonight, I unscrew the lid of the whispering jar, just for a moment. The star's light spills out, brushing the walls with a soft glow that flickers like candlelight. I hold my breath, half expecting it to fly away, back to where it belongs. But it stays, resting on the lip of the jar, humming its quiet song. I whisper back. I tell it about the sea today, how the gulls flew lower than usual, how the tide brought in seaweed that curled like green ribbons on the rocks below. I tell it about my dinner, a stew of root vegetables, warmed over the stove while the wind tapped gently at the windows. I tell it I am glad it chose to come to me tonight, that it is welcome to stay as long as it wishes. The star pulses softly, and for a heartbeat, the room feels warmer. I wonder what it hears in my voice, if it can sense the steady beat beneath my ribs, if it understands that here, in this little lighthouse, it is safe. I close the jar again, gently pressing the lid until it clicks into place. The star settles inside, its light a promise against the hush of the coming dawn. I place it on the shelf beside its siblings, a new note in a chorus that never ends. In the silence that follows, I listen to them all. The lighthouse walls hold their song close, echoing it back to me in whispers that settle my restless thoughts. The sea breathes. The stars whisper. And I, the keeper of this gentle light, listen until my own eyes grow heavy, my thoughts drifting like the tide that rocks the cliff to sleep. Chapter 3: The Lantern and the Tide. Morning here does not come with loud fanfare. It arrives quietly, like a soft breath pulled through half-open windows. By the time the sun touches the water, the lighthouse stones have already begun to warm. The jars and bottles that lined my shelves the night before look pale in the daylight, their light resting, waiting for dusk to wake them again. I always wake before the sun crests the far edge of the sea. Not because I have to, no ships rely on my lamp anymore, but because I like to stand by the water as the tide creeps in, curling around my boots like a curious cat. I carry a small lantern with me, even when the sky is clear. It is habit more than need. A reminder, perhaps, of what this place once was, a guidepost for sailors chasing distant lands and safe harbors. I walk down the worn stone steps carved into the cliffside, my boots scraping against the smooth edges softened by salt and centuries. The beach below is narrow, scattered with driftwood, bits of shell, and the occasional ghost of an old net tangled among the rocks. Here, the ocean feels closer, as if it leans in to listen when I speak. I hold my lantern low, though the flame inside is small. The wind brushes against it, but it does not flicker out. The glass is scratched, the brass handle tarnished by years of sea air, but it feels good in my hand. Solid. Familiar. I crouch by the edge of the tide, letting the waves slip over my boots. The cold soaks through the leather, numbing my toes, but I don't mind. The lantern light spills onto the water, bending and breaking with each ripple until it looks like a star dancing on the sea's surface. When I was young, I believed that if I could light a lantern bright enough, the stars above would notice and send one down to me in thanks. Now that I have shelves full of them, I know it doesn't work that way. They come when they wish, not when I summon them. But still, The old habit stays with me: light the lantern, stand by the tide, wait. Sometimes, when the wind is calm and the water sighs in soft breaths, I see tiny glimmers caught between the waves. Not the sun's reflection, not sea foam or the sparkle of salt, but something softer, more alive. Little echoes of the stars above, drifting down to greet their siblings in my jars. I scoop a handful of seawater, let it run through my fingers. I imagine each drop carrying a memory of somewhere I've never been, a deep trench where fish that glow like lanterns drift through ink-dark water, a faraway shore where the sand sings when the wind touches it. I tell these thoughts to the lantern light, as if it can remember for me. After a while, the tide pulls back, leaving behind patterns in the sand that look like the veins of a leaf. I follow them with my eyes, tracing the lines until they vanish beneath new waves. There's a peace in knowing the sea never truly stays still. It changes, and in changing, it keeps its promises. I rise and walk back up the cliff, lantern swinging gently by my side. The lighthouse waits for me at the top, tall and patient, its stones warmed by the sun's first touch. It feels more alive now than it ever did when its beams swept the horizon for lost sailors. Now, it keeps watch over something quieter, a keeper who gathers stars, who listens to the whispers of the tide, who lights a lantern not to guide ships, but to remind himself that even the smallest flame can call to the sky. Inside, the jars rest in their shelves like seeds waiting for nightfall. I pause by each one, tapping a fingertip gently against the glass. A soft flicker answers me every time, like a heartbeat acknowledging my own. I place the lantern by the door, ready for tonight's ritual. I make myself tea, pouring it into a chipped mug that smells faintly of salt and stories. I sit by the window, the sea stretched wide below, the sky above still pale and waking. I sip the tea slowly, letting the warmth fill the spaces inside me that the tide cannot reach. I think of the stars resting behind glass, the lantern waiting by the door, the waves whispering secrets in a tongue I'm still learning to speak. Here, in this lighthouse where no ships come, I am more than a keeper of light. I am a listener, a watcher, a quiet promise to the sky that its drifting children will always find a place to rest. And when the sun dips again, and the horizon swallows its gold, I will stand by the tide once more, lantern in hand, waiting for the next gentle light to find me. Chapter 4: The Night Garden. When the sun folds itself into the sea, the lighthouse walls seem to breathe again. The stones cool under the night breeze, and the glass jars begin to wake, one by one. Their soft pulses spill out into my room, brushing the shelves, the floor, my hands. I like to think of it as my garden, though instead of flowers, I tend to stars. I never knew I could grow a garden out of the sky. But here I am, watering the silence with my voice, pruning the darkness with careful hands, gathering petals of light into bottles so they can bloom beside me through the night. Tonight, the wind is gentle. The sea hushes its voice, letting the stars speak instead. I open my window and lean out, feeling the salt stick to my skin, my hair lifting slightly with the breeze. Far below, the tide glitters, reflecting the same lights that rest behind my walls. Sometimes I imagine my lighthouse as an anchor for the sky. Without it, the stars might drift too far, forget their way home. But with this small tower of stone and glass, they always have a place to settle, a place to rest their tired glow. I move among the jars, checking each one. I tighten a cork here, adjust a lid there. Some bottles are old, once used for ink or oil or honey, while others are newer, clear and smooth, their glass catching and bending the starlight in quiet shapes across my floor. One jar hums a little louder than the others tonight. I lift it from the shelf and cradle it in both hands. Inside, the star flickers, a soft heartbeat of silver blue. I hold it close to my ear and listen. Its voice is softer than a whisper, but it says enough. It tells me of a place far above the clouds, where the wind carries the smell of burning ice and silent songs. It tells me of drifting, of falling, of finding my waiting hands below. I thank it for coming so far to keep me company. I promise it a safe place among its kin. I open the window wider and look out across the water. The horizon is a soft bruise of deep blue and indigo. No ships, no lanterns but mine. Just the sea, the sky, and the garden I tend in the spaces between. I remember my mother's garden when I was small, roses climbing a broken fence, wild herbs spilling from cracked clay pots. She spoke to them as she trimmed dead leaves and coaxed new buds from stubborn stems. I think now that I am not so different from her, tending to small living things, hoping they stay, even when they have every reason to leave. I carry the humming jar to my bedside table and set it down gently. It casts a pool of light on my blanket, a tiny moon by my side. I sit cross-legged on the floor for a while, my back resting against the old wooden bed frame. Around me, the lighthouse walls catch and hold the soft glow of dozens of stars. Their light does not blind or burn. It soothes. It drifts through the room like mist, settling in the corners, brushing my shoulders, touching my eyelids when they grow heavy. Sometimes, I wonder if the stars see me as I see them. Do they think of me as a keeper, or a thief? A gardener, or a jailer? But when doubt stirs, I remember how they come to me willingly, how they rest in my palms, warm and trusting, choosing the glass jars over the endless sky. Outside, the wind sighs through the window. The tide shifts below, whispering its low secrets to the cliff's edge. I close my eyes and listen, the humming jar pressed to my chest. I do not ask for tomorrow to bring anything more than this, the quiet company of stars, the hush of the tide, the slow drift of my thoughts among the light. When I finally place the jar back on the shelf, the walls of my night garden bloom with their gentle glow. No petals wilt here. No flowers fade. Just small, soft lights, drifting like seeds waiting for the wind. I lie down beneath their watchful hum, the window open to the sea and sky. The lighthouse stones hold me close, the jars breathe around me, and somewhere above, a new star stirs, beginning its long, gentle fall toward my waiting hands. Chapter 5, The Keeper's Promise. Tonight, The sea is restless, though its voice remains gentle. I can hear the waves shifting below, pushing and pulling at the rocks like a tired heartbeat that refuses to settle. Inside my lighthouse, the jars hum their soft song. The air feels heavy with waiting, as if the sky is holding its breath. I sit by the window, my knees drawn to my chest, watching the horizon vanish into the dark. Above, the stars scatter themselves with casual grace, like seeds tossed by a careless wind. Some nights, I feel I could count them all, give each one a name, a story, a place on my shelves. But I know better than to believe I can hold the whole sky in my hands. Still, the thought comforts me. It makes this quiet life feel bigger, stitched to a vastness I cannot see but can feel pressing close. Long ago, I made myself a promise, that as long as I could see the stars, I would never turn my lamp away. I would keep this lighthouse alive, not for passing ships, but for the drifting lights that find their way to me. The lantern at my door, the jars on my shelves, the whispers that fill my small stone tower, I keep them all as proof that even the farthest things can come home. Sometimes I imagine what would happen if I left. If I packed my jars into a crate, slung my lantern over my shoulder, and walked away from this lonely edge of the world. Would the stars still come? Would they follow me inland, drift between tall buildings and crowded streets until they found my waiting hands? I think not. This place, this lonely perch above the endless water, this is part of the promise. The stones, the wind, the tide, all of it holds the magic that brings the stars down to me. I am only the keeper. The lighthouse itself is the beacon. I stand and cross the room, barefoot on the cold floor. I stop by each jar, touching them gently. The glass is warm beneath my fingertips, pulsing with soft light. I murmur small thanks as I pass, tiny prayers to lights that need no gods. I reach my oldest jar, the first star I ever caught. Its glow is softer now, settled into the glass like an old memory. I lift it carefully, cradling it in both hands. I remember that night so clearly, the sharp breath of wind, the surprise of warmth in my palm, the way my heart stumbled against my ribs when I realized what I held. Back then, I didn't understand what it meant. Now I do. It means this, that even the sky needs somewhere to rest, and sometimes that place is a pair of waiting hands in a lighthouse by the sea. I carry the jar to the window and hold it up to the night. Its light glows brighter, as if the sky recognizes its lost peace. I wonder if the stars above feel its gentle pull, the quiet promise that here, in this tower, they are never alone. I don't open the jar. I never do. Some lights choose to stay. Some lights choose to go. When they are ready, they will slip from their glass walls and drift back to the sky, carrying my whispered secrets with them. Outside, the wind shifts. I catch the faintest flicker of light drifting down through the dark, a soft shimmer caught in the corner of my vision. I smile, holding the old jar close as I watch the new star fall. It spins lazily, like a leaf on a slow breeze, drifting closer and closer until I can almost taste its warmth. I reach out my free hand, palm open to the night. The star settles there, light as breath, warm as a heartbeat. I hold it gently, pressing it close to my chest where the old star waits in its jar. I whisper my promise again, I will keep this place ready. I will light the lantern. I will tend the jars. I will listen to the whispers. I will be the keeper, for as long as the stars choose to come. When I place the new star into its waiting bottle, the room sighs around me, walls humming, shelves glowing, the wind slipping through the window like a quiet blessing. I sit by the window once more, knees to my chest, the old jar in one hand, the new star flickering softly behind glass at my side. The sea breathes below, restless but kind. The lighthouse stones hold steady. And above, the sky scatters its seeds again, trusting that here, on this lonely cliff, someone is waiting to gather them in gentle hands. Chapter 6: The Lighthouse Sleeps. Tonight feels different, though nothing has really changed. The sea below still sighs against the cliffs, the wind still runs its fingers through the cracks in my lighthouse walls, and the jars still hum their quiet, wordless songs. But there's a softness in the air, a hush that drapes itself over the stones like a blanket. I sit on the floor, surrounded by my garden of bottled stars. They cast gentle shadows on the old wood and stone, painting my small world in silvers and golds. I can feel each pulse of light, a chorus of heartbeats that echoes my own, steady and calm. My lantern rests by the door, its small flame asleep for now. It will wake with me tomorrow, ready to follow me down the cliffside to the tide's edge. There, I will stand barefoot in the cold water, lantern in hand, waiting for the horizon to open its arms once more. But not yet. Not tonight. Tonight belongs to stillness. I trace my fingers along the glass of a nearby jar. The star inside flickers under my touch, not startled, just aware. I imagine it dreams, though I don't know if stars need dreams the way I do. Maybe they dream of the vastness they left behind, or maybe they dream of the warmth of my palm, the quiet of this old tower, the soft salt in the air. Once, long ago, I feared that my heart would grow too heavy with all this light, like I was borrowing pieces of the sky I had no right to keep. But over the years, I've learned something gentle and true: you can hold light without stealing it. You can keep company without chaining it. All these stars chose to rest here with me, and when they wish to go, they will go, carrying a small part of me wherever they drift next. I lean back against the wall and look up at the ceiling beams above my head. I imagine them holding stories, soaked in the same salt and wind as my skin. This tower has watched generations of waves crash and retreat, storms roar and hush. It has outlived all the ships that once searched for its beam. Now, it only needs to stand guard over this quiet, tender glow. I close my eyes and let my breathing match the hum of the jars. One by one, their voices slip into me, soft melodies without words, wrapping themselves around my thoughts until they slow, drifting like small boats rocking on calm water. I think of the stars still scattered above, of the ones drifting down through the dark, looking for a safe place to land. I imagine the horizon stretched far and wide, the tide that keeps its secrets tucked under each wave. I picture the lantern's flame waiting by the door, patient as the lighthouse stones. I whisper to the jars around me. I tell them they are safe here, that they can rest as long as they wish. I promise them the door will stay open, the window unlatched, my hands ready to catch whatever light finds its way to me next. The wind slips through the cracks, brushing my cheek with the taste of salt. The tide hushes itself far below, a lullaby I have known since my first breath here. The jars sigh back, warm light brushing my eyelids until my thoughts drift like silt in the water. In this moment, the lighthouse feels as if it breathes with me. Its stones hold my heartbeat, its windows cradle the hush of my night garden. Outside, the horizon waits for dawn, but here inside, there is only this, the quiet company of drifting stars, the warmth of old wood and glass, the soft hush of promises kept. And so, the keeper drifts too, into the same hush, into the same gentle tide that carries each fallen star from sky to jar, from jar to dream. Tomorrow, the lantern will wake. The tide will call. Another star will fall. But tonight, in this tower perched above the world's edge, the lighthouse drifts with me, keeper and stones, jars and whispers, into the soft, endless hush where nothing is lost, and everything glows.